there is an online war going on between South Africa and Nigeria. We've known Nigeria and Ghana to fight online wars.
Yeah.
The Cameroonians tried, but they are too little. I mean, you know what I mean. They're like, Nigeria claims to be the big brother, and Ghana claims to be the next big brother, or sometimes they claim to be the big brother. But everybody knows Nigeria is the big brother in Africa. And so a couple of months ago, I think early this year, last year, Cameroonians wanted to start their own war.
They couldn't have their
but
way.
it didn't even hold. It didn't even hold water at all, because I mean, Cameroon is nowhere to be found on the equation, right? And so the accusation is that Nigerians love themselves so much, love their fashion so much, love their money. So Cameroonian musicians are suffering because Nigeria isn't supporting them, and yet they play Nigerian music. Well, me, I don't even play all that music, so I can't help Cameroon right there. But that's the reason for Cameroon wanted to fight an online war with Nigeria, but that one didn't last. Ghana and Nigeria have forever fought this war, and that's good. I'm going to say it now, Chiamaka, because probably you don't know, and a lot of people don't know. The major war is Ghana Jollof and Nigerian Jollof, which is the best, right?
Yeah.
As this has gone on forever until it has taken global status. Now they have competitions, jollof competitions, to know between Ghana and Nigeria, you know, who cooks jollof better. Now, to bust their bubble, I have said this a number of times online, neither Nigeria nor Ghana has the best jollof.
Okay, so who has the best jollof?
Senegal.
Oh.
Jollof rice originated from Senegal, and so this
even ours.
That's the point. These ignorant Nigerians and Ghanaians don't even know that they don't own jollof. Jollof originated from the Wolof tribe of Senegal. So that thing they call jollof is actually Wolof. It's a tribe from Senegal, and they make the best brown rice anywhere that you can find anywhere in the world. It's called chepjen. Okay. That's the name, the French name, chepjen. Right? And so, Nigeria and Ghana are nowhere to be found on the equation. The best jollof rice is called chepjen, and it's from Senegal. It originated from there. The Gambians and the Senegalese actually have similar cultures. And so these countries make better jollof than, right? I can tell you for sure, Ghana is a good place to visit. It's quiet. It's nice. I like to go to Tema. Tema is a very small town, about an hour from Accra, to spend a few days, you know, cool your head and relax. Even Accra is not as crowded as Lagos. So give that to Ghanaians. They're cool-headed people. Their cities are better organized than, you know, our major Lagos and the crowded cities. So I give that to you, Ghana. But when it comes to cooks, Ghana, you are nowhere. Ghanaians don't know how to cook. They have kenke. Something that if you give it to anybody in Nigeria, they can't even eat it, but it's one of their major dishes. They have their banku, right? Ghanaians are nowhere when it comes to food, but that's not the topic of the day. I wanted to lay a background for the wars that have gone on online between Nigeria and so many countries. But in recent times, what happened was that Nigerians have been upset with South Africa since 2019. And I want to give proper background. And the reason is this. South Africans are very xenophobic, right? They have been known to attack other Africans. And so South Africans believe that Africans living in South Africa take their jobs. And it's because of these Africans that they don't have jobs and they're not able to live a good life.
Yeah.
So that is the impression that majority of South African citizens have. And because of that, they just hate Africans, right? And for so many years, at the least aggravation, South Africans will hit the streets and start killing black people from, you know, the rest of Africa. Start targeting businesses. So Nigerians own many small-scale businesses in South Africa. And every time South Africans hit the street, they attack Nigerian businesses. They attack businesses owned by Mozambicans, Angolans, and the rest of Africa. Right? Now, but we are saying that this culture of xenophobia, xenophobic attacks on Africans is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Because for a number of reasons, South Africans don't know. Probably they were not taught history in school. South Africans don't know how Nigeria and a lot of other Africans actually started coming to South Africa. I'm going to, you know, give that information today, you know, to educate those of you who are listening. But they also are wrong in that move to attack Nigerians because 80% of the South African economy are in the hands of the whites. 80% of the lands in South Africa are owned by white people. And this is something that happened because of slavery, I can't call it colonization. That's right, right? The whites came there, colonized South Africa, and made the black people of South Africa slaves. And for hundreds of years, they owned the lands, they owned the currencies, they owned the resources, they mined the resources, they mined the diamonds and whatever it is that South Africa owns. And so it made those white families wealthy, stinking wealthy. And so South Africans were subjected to servitude. And so for hundreds of years, many generations of South Africans served these white people until 1990, I believe, 1991, when South Africa gained independence, right? Now, this is the same reason that Mandela went to prison for 27 years, because Mandela and a whole lot of other people who were members of the ANC, African National Congress, I think, were fighting the whites to gain independence. And Nigeria supported South Africa throughout this fight, right? The minute Nigeria gained independence, one of the major continental projects that Nigeria took on was the liberation of South Africa and many other, colonized countries, right? Now, I said at the last show, Nigeria invested $60 billion in the fight to liberate South Africa from slavery, right? From colonization or from the colonial masters. South Africans don't know this today, and this is why they keep attacking Nigerians, right? So we chose this topic today, the online war between Nigeria and South Africa and how it can affect economies of both countries, bilateral economic, ties, right? Yeah. It's a very dangerous one, because the truth is Nigerians, like I said, since 2019, that was the last major xenophobic attack that happened. It's been happening throughout the years. Yeah. But the 2019 one was like a straw that broke the camel's back. South Africans will attack Africans and go free. And there won't be any reprisal attacks in the different countries of these Africans that are being attacked, right? Yeah. But in 2019, different African countries say enough is enough. And so in Nigeria, South African businesses were attacked, as a reprisal attack. Yeah, attack. In Mozambique, they were attacked. In Angola, they were attacked, right? The South African government actually saw that this is getting out of hand and decided to wade in and begin, a number of measures to actually rein, the violence in and actually ensure that the xenophobic attacks wouldn't happen again. And that's why, since 2019, we haven't had any other major xenophobic attacks. The other thing also that drew so much light to that xenophobic attack was the fact that Air Peace went to South Africa and lifted many Nigerians who were stranded there for free, right? So it gave South Africa a lot of shame globally, right? And so the government and the police force decided, okay, we're going to be proactive about this thing and to make sure that it never happens again, right? So that is to give you a little history of how what started the hate. So because of that, Nigerians have been upset with South Africans, right? Now, but a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, something happened. A young girl, a young Igbo girl, whose father is Nigerian and Igbo, and I understand her mother is Mozambican, but lived in South Africa for so many years, and the girl was born in South Africa. She only came to Nigeria 20 years ago. She's 20-something years, she's 23. Now, all her life, she's lived in South Africa. She's schooled in South Africa. All her life, she was raised in South Africa. She's only been to Nigeria once, and that was 20 years ago. So practically, this girl is South African. The only difference is that her father is Nigerian, making her a Nigerian by, parentage, right? Nigerian by, by way of her father, right? And so she decided she was going to join the Miss South Africa beauty pageant, about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, more than that, yeah.
Yeah, and South Africans decided that they don't want her, right? And so South Africans said, this girl cannot represent us. She's a beautiful girl. I later saw, pictures of the people who were involved in the pageant. So I actually thought she stood a very good chance of winning that pageant. Yeah,
they already started. Then they saw that, okay, she's going to take this. She has, greater chances
of taking the crown, right?
So
all right.
They just attacked.
So the South Africans started attacking her online. It was all out war against this girl and Nigeria. They started saying all sorts of crazy things about the girl, about Nigerians, that they don't want this girl. She cannot represent them. She doesn't know their culture and all of that. She's not fit to represent South Africa on the global stage, because I think whoever wins Miss South Africa goes to Miss World, right? Mm-hmm. And so they made sure that this girl doesn't, go on with this pageant competition. And they took it a step further, to report her, with the authorities. And so the authorities started investigating and discovered that there was some kind of fraud from the girl's mother's part, right? They said the girl's mother, whether it's true or not, we don't know, but this is what they said. The girl's mother committed fraud, citizenship fraud, that she committed identity fraud, that the ID she used to apply for her citizenship was stolen from a South African. And so that means that the girl's name is Chidema Onwe.
Mm-hmm.
So they discovered that because of this, that Chidema Onwe is not fit, to be part of this pageant competition. And they disqualified. Well, she had to resign. Resign is not what you call it. She had to.
She just walked away.
Yeah, she walked away.
And it's for her own safety.
That's right, her own safety. And so the investigation started going on, and they decided now that Chidema is no more South African. Her mother is no more South African. Her father is not South African. They're not qualified to have citizenship. That there was fraud going on. And so that's what happened. And this aggravated Nigerians because it was an all-out war online, and they were criticizing Nigerians. South Africans were calling Nigerians drug pushers, human traffickers, and all of that. Now, I want to say this. I understand that a small percentage of Nigerians that live in foreign countries do bad businesses. And South Africa, for example, there are a good number of Nigerians living there, dealing in drugs. That's a fact, right? And I'm saying that is an error, failure of the authorities. Because if there is a particular nationality or different nationalities living in your country committing crime, it is the job of the police, right? To go all out, fish them out, make sure that they are sent to prison. You don't let your citizens run wild and begin to kill people or to attack people and destroy people's livelihood because a few members of their nationality are criminals, right? Now, I want to remind South Africans and everybody listening right now how Nigerians began to go to South Africa in the first place. Nigerians didn't get up and move to South Africa. Nigerians started going to South Africa in their good numbers in the early 90s after South African independence because they were invited by the South African government, right? Now, remember, for hundreds of years, South Africa ran an apartheid regime where white people ruled these Africans, and these Africans were mere servants, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when they gained independence, they released Mandela in 1990 or 1991 and decided Mandela was going to become president, right? Of course, they held an election, but it was decided that Mandela was going to be the first president. I actually think Mandela is not a hero as they claim he is. All of us say Mandela is a hero, he liberated South Africa and all of that. I think Mandela actually got tired of being in prison. I don't blame him. 27 years in prison for a cause. He wasn't the only one. Anyways, him and a lot of his, members of the ANC who were freedom fighters were locked up for as long as 27 years. It's just that Mandela was the most famous and everybody thought it was only Mandela. No, it wasn't only Mandela. But I think Mandela got tired of being in prison. He was afraid he could die in prison. And so when they made him an offer, man, we'll release you. But there are a number of things that you're going to concede to us. One of those things is that first, we're going to give you freedom and we're going to make you president. But you're not going to prosecute white people who have committed these crimes against humanity all of these years, right? Mm-hmm. Mandela agreed. And so instead of prosecute white people who have oppressed and proven to have killed black people, Mandela decided to set up the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, right? And the Truth and Reconciliation Committee was headed by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who saw over this committee. And what it meant is that as a white person, if you came out and confessed that you committed crimes against black people, including murder, that you will be forgiven and you won't be penalized. As long as you come out and confess and say who you committed. If you know them and you know their family, you confess and you point out the names and all of that. So a lot of people came out and confessed, including the people who killed Steve Biko, came out and confessed, and they were forgiven. Now, you as a black person, if you've also killed white people, you come out and confess. But of course, black people who killed whites were just a few minorities, just a few of them. The majority of the people killing and murdering people were white people. Well, that move was touted to be an amazing move of love, a show of goodwill. South Africans have great capacity to forgive, right? But that shouldn't have been the way. But that was what Mandela agreed to be, so that they can make him president. The other thing Mandela did was that he left the South African economy, 80% of South African economy, in the hands of the whites still. He left 80%, about 70-80% of landed properties in South Africa in the hands of the whites. And so they made you president, and then you became the hero. They gave you global acclaim to be the hero of South Africa. And yet you made decisions that has led up to South Africans continuing to be poor. South Africans are still slaves in their own country till date because a lot of them were not educated because of apartheid. So today they continue uneducated, they can't get good jobs. The ones that have gotten good jobs, went to school after apartheid, still, well, now can get jobs. But majority of South Africans are poor. Can you imagine that South Africans are more than 80% of the population, but control less than 5%, about 3% of the economy? So they are much poorer than the Indian South Africans, than the Europeans, than their European South African counterparts, right? And so this is because of the wrong decisions I believe that Mandela made. But I want to say this. After independence, South African government, lacking the professional skills needed to run the new South Africa, reached out to Nigeria and asked for Nigerian professionals to come and help in South Africa. Many people don't know this. It wasn't only Nigerians that went, but majority of Nigerians went to South Africa. Majority of the people that went to help South Africa, were Nigerian doctors, Nigerian engineers, Nigerian lecturers, Nigerian professors, went to South Africa in the early 90s to actually help the brand new South Africa run the economy. South Africans don't know this. I don't think they're taught this in their schools. And so that's how Nigerians moved to South Africa in droves. The people that started traveling in the late 2000s are people we call hustlers. Majority of them went, to hustle. Yeah. But yes, Nigerian professionals continue to go there. Many Nigerians also went to school because, of course, South Africa had good schools and very good educational standards. So many Nigerians, I know a few friends who went there and studied, 20 years ago and all of that. And today they're there either lecturing in their universities or working as professionals because they studied in South Africa. So many Nigerians who are in South Africa today are professionals and they're not criminals. They're not drug barons. They're not drug pushers. They're not human traffickers, right? There are more professional doctors that are of Nigerian origin that are working in the medical institutions of South Africa. There are many Nigerians who are financial professionals, engineers, working in different sectors of the South African economy. So I want South Africa to understand that, and that's how Nigerians started going there in the first place. So this attack on Nigerians, for every Nigerian, is saying that every Nigerian in South Africa is a criminal, is absolutely, absolutely wrong, right? Now, having laid that background, I want to state this. Nigeria-South Africa bilateral trade hit $72.1 billion this year. Right? Okay. So that means that intra-trade between the two countries have been profitable to both countries. But if we allow this online war fester to the point where Nigerians are angry, South Africans continue to antagonize Nigerians, and Nigerians are angry. Me personally, South Africa is one of those countries that I have visa-free travel to. But I can't get myself to go to South Africa. I've been considering this for at least 8 years now, but I can't get myself to go to South Africa because I'm afraid. What if I get there and they start xenophobic attacks? So imagine, that's what I'm thinking. And imagine somebody like Dangote, he could want to invest in South Africa, but he would not go because he's afraid that what if they start these xenophobic attacks and destroy my investment? And so I cannot guarantee you that there are many Nigerian wealthy people who would want to go there and invest because we have a bilateral trade agreement with this country. But we are afraid that if we set up businesses, then we could lose those businesses to xenophobic attack. So there are so many things I actually want to say on this subject, right? So it's already affecting potentials for both countries to make money. South Africans don't like Nigerians, so that means that a lot of them are not coming here to invest when they could have come here to invest. Look at, permit me to call the name, MTN, for example. Yeah. MTN became the biggest network company in Africa after it invested in Nigeria because it made so much profit in Nigeria. Now look at this superstore, the superstore that we have here, the South African superstore, the one you know now.
I did go ahead.
ShopRite. It's from South Africa.
Yeah.
Look at DSTV. I'm not giving them free promotion, but I need to make a point. Yeah. Right, look at DSTV. Look at GoTV. These are all South African brands, and many more. Look at the Spa. Coming from South Africa, I guess owned by Indians, but I think they came from South Africa. So there are many investments of South Africans in Nigeria doing well, making so much money, right? Now, but they are not thinking, the citizens are not thinking, if you continue this antagonism of Nigerians and you continue to attack Nigerian businesses and Nigerians decide to retaliate, South Africans will lose a lot of their investments in Nigeria, and that will affect their profitability, their chances of profitability in Nigeria, right? And so I'm actually saying this to anyone who listens. I know I'm in the city of Enugu, so I'm sure South Africans are not listening to me by radio right now, but we're streaming, and hopefully there are South Africans who would actually see this and hear us, right? Control your people. These attacks on Nigerians have to stop. Nigerians came there to help you, and Nigerians have contributed immensely to the growth and stability of the South African economy. Because remember, majority of South African black people are not educated. They don't have university degrees. The number of people who have degrees in South Africa are not as high as it is compared to their African counterpart. And that's because of apartheid, right? And the fact that apartheid did not allow South Africans to go to university, right? And so they needed skills coming from the rest of Africa. They needed professionals coming there. And that's why Nigerians went. Yes, of course, there are other Africans there, but they're all contributing to the growth of the South African economy. South Africa, for the longest time, was the second best economy in Africa. Nigeria was 1, and South Africa was 2. But currently, South Africa is 1, and Nigeria has been relegated to number 2, right? And you cannot discount the fact that Nigerians actually contributed to the growth and continues to contribute to the growth of the South African, economy. And so this xenophobic attacks have to stop. This online war has to stop. I want to tell you what happened last week after the Chidinma thing. Chidinma resigned and decided not to continue with the pageant. Yeah. And guess who won? A white lady. So the question we're asking is, Chidinma is not fit. A black girl born in South Africa is not fit to represent South Africa, but a white girl from France whose parents were not born in South Africa. A white girl who probably wasn't born in South Africa but gained citizenship by her naturalization is fit to represent you, right? That's the point that we're making. It doesn't make sense. So this is Afrophobia, the hate of African people, the hate of black people in South Africa by other black people. And so that's not really right? But what happened last week that actually set off this war and took it off the chains was that a South African decided to punish a Bolt driver in Nigeria. Yeah. And so he ordered a ride all the way in South Africa in Nigeria. This guy was in South Africa and pretended like he was in Nigeria at law school or something like that, and ordered a ride. And you know the high cost of fuel. And so ordered a ride with a Bolt driver in Nigeria, in Lagos. And this guy wasted his fuel going to the location to look for the guy. And behold, the guy wasn't there. How did we know that was what happened? The guy who ordered the ride in South Africa actually recorded a video of his crime and posted it on the internet. And Nigerians saw it and said, oh, you want to play games with us. South Africa is 50 million people. Nigeria is almost 250, 300 million people. Okay.
We shall be 200.
We'll show you, we'll teach you a lesson now. And so Nigerians started ordering Bolt and Uber from Nigeria. Ordering South African drivers all the way from Nigeria. Right? Now, they didn't stop there. They gathered South African Uber drivers at a particular location. I don't know how they did it, but over 40 Uber drivers were sent to a particular location. They all got there and were shocked at what was going on. They were looking at each other. These drivers said, what's going on? Somebody told me to come here. The other person would say, somebody told me to come here. The other person would say, lo and behold, these were ordered by Nigerians in Nigeria. And so it raised the price of fares. Uber and Bolt fares in South Africa. People who needed to go to work couldn't find Ubers because Nigerians had actually occupied the platform. And so that led to the shutting down of Uber and Bolt in South Africa, right? And so you see, that's actually dangerous. Now you see these drivers have lost money that day. Yes. They couldn't work effectively, and they lost their fuel, because of this game. Now, do you know Nigerians took it a step further by actually ordering food? South Africa has a lot of companies have a lot of eatries, like restaurants.
Yes, and they do pay on delivery.
That's right. A lot of them have pay on delivery services. So that means you order food and they dispatch it, and then you pay on delivery. So Nigerians started giving wrong addresses and ordering these foods. And these companies would send the food to the location only to get there, and people would say, no, I didn't order food. So it started affecting South African businesses, right? And until many South Africans are now coming online and begging Nigerians to stop.
I saw a particular post from a South African government agency, applauding Nigerians. So you people have won, but please
stop this game, right? So you see, it's dangerous actually. And these are two Africa's most successful economies. South Africa and Nigeria are Africa's two largest economies. How can we be having these online wars? How can we be affecting each other's businesses? And white people are sitting down and laughing at us, right? The real enemy is the white people who have colonized us. The real enemies are white people who have taken over our resources and our economies, right? In South Africa, white people are still controlling their resources. All the earnings from diamond belong to white South Africans. Their major institutions, their major companies are owned by white South Africans, not the blacks. At least in Nigeria, we own our own banks. These banks are owned by black people. These major companies are owned by black people. The richest man in Africa is a black man. But in South Africa, every major company is owned by a white person. right? And that's even the reason they're able to pay salaries and all of that. So if we continue this war, white people will continue to, oppress us because we cannot unite to do the needful. We're talking about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, where Africans can begin to trade and do business amongst each other. Is this how it's going to be? When we continue to fight each other, when we fight each other online, right? So the point, my own part is that I'm looking at the business angle of this, the monies that will be lost between South Africa and Nigeria. And so if this gets to a point where we begin to hate each other, remember that members of the government are also humans. So if they play into this sentiment, which a lot of South African politicians are actually playing into this sentiment, they are playing these games because once they hate on Africans, they get more votes from their people. And so they're actually playing into this game of letting their people know that we hate Africans, we don't want Africans there. They are driving this narrative of Africans being in our country and taking our jobs and all of that. And it's getting them votes, right? Now, remember that this could get to a point where it's going to affect our bilateral agreements, our bilateral trade agreements. South Africans will say, okay, we don't want Nigerian businesses here anymore. We won't give them licenses. And if you do that, there's something we call in international relations the law of reciprocity. What you do to me is what I do to you. That means if you ban visas for my people, I'll ban visas for your people. If you won't give my people licenses, I will give your people licenses to operate in our country as well. And what's going to happen? Businesses are going to begin to die between these countries. And what's going to happen in the end of the day is that South Africans are going to decide to move their businesses out of Nigeria. And of course, Nigerians will do the same. I mean, where does that leave Africa? So the point I'm making is that this game has gone too far. So I'm calling on the South African government to do something about it. Nigerians are your brothers. Nigerians are your big brothers. Tafawa Balewa committed to helping you gain independence, right? He committed millions. When the next guy came, Shehu Shagari came as well, he committed millions as well. At some point, Obasanjo also gave $3,000 of his own personal earnings when he was head of state, to support South Africa. The other thing that Nigeria did was there was something they call, I think it's something tax that they implemented in Nigeria in those days. I think in the 70s, 80s, where civil servants had to take a small chunk of their salaries and contribute it for the cause of South Africa gaining independence. So really, Nigeria did a lot to help South Africa. Why is South Africa now paying Nigeria back in such a very bad way, right? So I'm calling on the Nigerian government to look into this and actually begin to negotiate with their South African counterparts to find a way to ameliorate relations between South African and Nigerian citizens. I'm also calling out the South African government and politicians for actually, encouraging South Africans to do this, right? Now, I can tell you that the only reason xenophobic attacks have not started because of this is because of the noise that was made in 2019. South African businesses lost money. So that's why I can assure you that that's the reason they haven't started destroying businesses, right? Because I saw some posts online as well saying that they were getting ready, that if Chidima had competed, that they were getting ready to loot. People were saying, oh my God, why did this girl resign? They had planned to go and get new shoes from the stores that they were planning to loot, So really, it's a game gone out of hand. So I'm calling on both governments to do something about it so that we can save, our bilateral trade agreements between two countries. It's important to us. Look at that, $72.1 billion between two countries. It's a lot of money. We need that money. South Africa needs it. Nigeria needs it, right? And the only way we're going to keep this figure growing is if we continue to, have good relations between both countries.